Good afternoon to one and all present here. I welcome our chairs, Professor Dr. L. Pushpakumar sir and Dr. Garima Goswami ma'am, and all the participants to the technical session 1 of the Artificial Intelligence and Healthcare, Legal and Other Aspects. Now I would like to introduce our chairs to all the participants. So our first chair is Dr. L. Pushpakumar sir. Uh, He is presently associated with Delhi University as a senior professor. He has earlier worked at Madras High Court as an advocate and at CPR Environment Education Center, Chennai, as an education officer. He has obtained his BA, LLB, and LLM degree from Pondicherry University, and he has completed his PhD from Delhi University on the theme of international regulation of biotechnology. His specialization in his various subjects, that is environmental law, intellectual property, rights, international law, and law relating to biotechnology, biosafety, and bioethics. I also extend my warm welcome to our second chair, Dr. Garima Goswami, ma'am. Uh, she's presently associated with DME Law School, Noida, as associate professor. She has earlier worked with Amity Law School, Delhi, and Modi University, Rajasthan. She has obtained LLB honors degree from Vivekanand Institute, New Delhi. She has completed her PhD from Jamia Islamia on the theme of cyber victimization of women. Dr. Garima ma'am has attended many national and international conferences and has published papers in reputed journals and books. Uh, Also, now I would like to inform to all the participants that the total time allotted to the speakers of the paper is 10 minutes, out of which 8 minutes shall be for presenting and the remaining 2 minutes shall be for questions by the chairs. So without wasting much time, I would like to call our first presenter, Dr. J. Padmaja, for presenting the paper title, Artificial Intelligence in the Healthcare Sector, Legalities Involved. Sir, you may proceed.
So we are calling the paper presenters first. So let them
Yes,
present.
sir.
Yes. Go ahead.
Dr. Padmaja, if you can hear us, please switch on your video and unmute yourself. Do we have Dr. Padmaja here? I think I can see her.
If you have her phone number, you can.
Yes, yes. Meanwhile, maybe, sir, we can move on to the next
Next.
presenter. Uh, Apurva, please announce.
So, okay, I would like to move on to the next presenter. Uh, Miss Ojasvi Bhagat, she's presenting on the title Liability of Artificial Intelligence in Operating Theatre.
Ms. Ojasvi, if you are here, please start your video. No problem. I think we can proceed to the next.
Okay, ma'am. Moving further, Mr. Amanjot Singh Malhotra, and he's presenting on artificial intelligence, a legitimate enforcement for healthcare system. Please proceed.
Good morning, everyone. Just give me a second. Hello, everyone. So I have to present my presentation, right?
Yes, please. You have the option of sharing your screen, so you may. Aman, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone, and all present here. I'm Manju Singh Malhotra from JP University of Information Technology. Would like to present my work regarding artificial intelligence used in healthcare systems. So here is the introduction to my research. Artificial intelligence is a versatile reinforcement that enhances the stage of health care system if applied via legitimate uh, if applied via legitimate approach. It is directed by the advancement in big data analysis and powerful machine learning techniques, where multiple techniques have been created to enhance the methodology of clinical practice, to strengthen medical investigation, and to improve its effectiveness. AI applied in overall an array of diverse segments of healthcare industries sectors, which primarily incorporate data processing, computation, and storage, tracking situations, advancing therapies, analytical robotics, hospitality, pharmaceuticals, biotechnological industry, which is emerging along with AI, holding a significant promise for growth. It is further sub-segmented to agriculture, medical, animal, and industrial biotechnology, where it is used in medical discovery and clinical trials, diagnostics, customized machines, quality control, and electronic health record. In India, there are countless policies that incentives various factors of the progression, including the use of artificial intelligence in health coverage solutions. This entails legislation on the use of health data certificate and requirement for automatic medical devices and framework followed by practitioners. The value of responsible and lawful AI was highlighted by certain questions like how can consent be granted by AI system, how will liability issues be tracked, how will AI bend into India current ethics systems, how can the safety and precisions of AI applications be secured, mainly involved in healthcare industry. Therefore, factors in ethic laws and society should be potentially addressed by artificial intelligence to transform healthcare in India with the assistance of design professional and decision maker when constructing utilization and enforcing an AI. So now we'll look into all these questions. AI and healthcare segments. So these are the segments which we are going to look into. First, hospital treatments. Artificial intelligence is used for data and analytic inspections, enhancing and improving the accuracy of diagnostic report, gradually leading to an increase in comprehending patient beliefs. Secondly, pharmaceuticals. Manufacturing, developing, purification, packaging of chemical material operating as medications for humans or animals are some domain area pharmaceuticals. In India, pharmaceutical companies are utilizing the much more assorted artificial intelligence through drug development, in which is stimulated to monitor across all the existing literature via a specific molecule for even a drug. Example, precipitated molecular identification that might otherwise be difficult to manually carry out even a group of people. Thirdly, there are telemedicines. Uh, Telemedicine additionally help address the rising difficulties of drug of delivery of health services to poor and isolated areas, notwithstanding conducting people roles in training, education, and strategy planning in the healthcare, therefore standardize the quality of care with the human contempt. Other is medical equipments and supplies and diagnostic treatments. There are mainly two diagnostic. That first is NIRMAI, which is an acronym for Non-Invasion Risk Assessment with Machine Intelligent utilizing the thermal high resolution detecting gadget, which monitor the chest area along as a camera. Furthermore, utilize cloud data facilitated investigation alternative to descent the thermal representation for earlier cancer symptoms, malignant growth. And the other portable and other devices portable, which is a portable patch named as 10-3T, which can be known to be wear by heart stroke patients, which monitors vital signals but also transfer the information via the web, which also uh, which also can at the point of monitor in real time by specialist doctors. And now diagnostic seems to be using AI tools in India that are used in thermal breast cancer screening, analytics at pre-stage, and TB detections from chest X-ray and ultrasound imagery. In accordance with WHO, India began home to many more than 5 million people who suffering from depression, and indeed a massive factor contributing to worldwide suicide attempts. Pursuing help so far for emotional wellness issues is done. So many companies appear to tackle this dilemma by utilizing artificial intelligence innovations to assist the management of psychological well-being, for the most part as chatbots that offer counseling while at the same time preserving confidentiality. Other here, this is the statistic analysis of AI used in biotechnology, which represent the growth of AI regarding the past years. So here you can see the growth in this statistic graph. Next is agriculture biology. Biotechnology firms are utilizing man-made intelligence to create independent robots that help in gathering crops at a faster rate that doing manually. It is also used in raising genetically modification crops with new qualities. The other aspect is medical biotechnology. AI, artificial intelligence, help in tracking little particles that could give therapeutic focal points subject to acknowledged targets such as in quality control, radiology, customized drug, and medicines and medications. Other is animal biotechnology. These plants deal with the science strategy to innately assemble the animals to improve the maintenance and cultivating procedures of current pharmaceuticals. Raising of animals is one of its main domain. Other we can see is industrial biotechnology. Industrial biotechnology mainly focus on biopolymers substitutes, the improvement in various domains like vehicle part, fills, stands, new synthetic compounds, and the creation procedures. Now we can see application of AI in biotechnology. So applications includes personalized medicine. Personalized medicine where you can design your medicine according to your own health characteristics and symptoms, which is beneficial to every individual. Now other is the documentation and data recovery can be done through EHR, which is electronic health record. Now ethical, legal, and cultural cognitions. Cultural affirmations, which includes cultural affirmations and defining acceptable behavior. Data privacy and safety. It could indeed be exploiting to create distinctive methods which which imperil its safety, but mostly well-being along with many essential data. The other is consent, consent acceptance. Ethical approval has to be taken before administering any clinical practice. And here, this in this slide shows the statistics
Sir,
of
you are left down with 2 minutes more.
okay statistics of artificial intelligence utilization in law domain. And law applied regulated in these biotechnology segments include number one, assessment of transgenic seeds, plants and plant section 1998 include primarily research on DNA sequencing implied on plant. And the other is procedural aspects of pharmaceutical biotechnology, in which India has revised its legislative entanglements protecting the intellectual property by different laws and regulation, which include Patent Rights Act designed in 1999, Methodology of Preservation of Genetic Resource, and Farmers' Rights Act implemented in 2001. Other is regulation governing biotechnological safety based on
Amanjot?
yes.
Sir, I think you should stop.
Professor,
So I would like
so I think Professor Pushpamar is saying something.
Yes.
Uh,
here I would like to
Professor Pushpamar, sorry, you will have to unmute yourself, sir.
and
Just a minute, Amanjot.
okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Amanjot,
Yes, sir.
can you just, yeah, now you have come to the conclusion.
Right.
Can you just tell us what do you understood by this topic? Now you have, very comprehensively given the outline about the healthcare systems. Now, how, this enforcement of, AI will help in health, sector, and your finding, if you have any one or two points that, you have less time. If you have some points, as findings, you can tell us.
This AI can be very beneficial in like Nirmala tool. So in healthcare, like diagnostic of cancer before it occurring, it can be there, and other point can be like health diseases, like people can get to know before getting a stroke of heart. Any kind of health monitoring systems can be generated. Other there are chatbots which are beneficial for mental illness, like people suffering from depression, and other for counseling purpose. We can use AI, and another aspect. But what we can see is the that it is also beneficial for farmers, like predicting, like AI can help with them telling about the weather, soil conditions, and other etc., so that they can grow a good agriculture. And also it can also be AI can also be used in genetical modification groups for that of genetic transformation of any crop, so that it can grow more properly. That's all.
If Dr. Garima would like to ask anything, I think the presentation is fine.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Amanjot, your presentation is quite good. The only input that I would like to give is that since the theme of the conference is interface between law and artificial intelligence, so probably you can incorporate more about the legal part. But I really appreciate the work that you have put into the research. I think it is more from the healthcare perspective and the AI perspective. So all the best. You can further incorporate these inputs. Thank you so much, Amanjot. Now, before calling on to the next presenter, I would here like to welcome Professor Dr. Sudhir Bisht. He is from DME Management School. Welcome, sir. Sir, would you like to ask any question? Okay, so the next presenter as per the list is Dr. R.K. Radhava along with Miss Ramya Khanna. So I think Miss Ramya Khanna is present. Amanjot, you can stop presenting. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Just a minute, sir. I'm just
Ramya. After Ramya, the next presenter will be Ms. Tanisha Sharma along with Mr. Pallav Chaudhary. So they are requested to please be ready with their presentation.
So this paper has analyzed the interrelationship between artificial intelligence, healthcare, and privacy laws in India. Artificial intelligence is being hailed not just as a transformational force, but is also emerging as the leading solution for an overburdened and overwhelmed healthcare sector in India. The 1:1456 doctor-patient ratio in India has raised concerns of deadly human errors due to incomplete medical histories, large caseloads, and a fatigued healthcare providers. The application of artificial intelligence across various levels of the healthcare ecosystem can be seen through detection and diagnosis use, prediction and transmission use, treatment use, facing applications, and process optimization, which has brought about a paradigm shift in the patient care delivery system in India. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has not only highlighted the advantages of the AI healthcare interface, but has also put forth a strong case for examining its implementation risk and that of protection, security, and privacy of medical health data in the absence of sector-specific legislations in India. Now, this is because of the inherent reliance of AI on data that it has become a double-edged sword. On one hand, it has become a pillar of strength and support for an overburdened healthcare sector, while on the other hand, it has engendered grave ethical and privacy concerns that need to be addressed at the earliest. Before we go into what is the interrelationship of artificial intelligence, healthcare, and privacy, we need to understand what exactly is artificial intelligence. There is no exact definition of artificial intelligence as it is ever evolving, but it is generally perceived as the field of study oriented around computer systems that mimic the capabilities of the human mind by learning from examples, experiences, recognizing objects, understanding and responding to language, making decisions, and solving problems. AI technologies encompasses various technologies, some of them being machine learning, reinforcement learning, deep learning, agent systems, self-modifying graph systems, knowledge bases, business intelligence systems, expert systems, chatbots and intelligent agents, visual and audio recognition systems, and fractional visualization. We move on to the application of AI in healthcare. The healthcare sector in India has rapidly grown and is expected to reach $372 billion by 2022. Therefore, it is being seen as a leading solution to overcome the Gordian knot of quality, accessibility, accountability, and inequality. The use of AI in the healthcare ecosystem can be seen across various levels and subsectors and can be classified into the following four uses. First being detection and prediction, wherein AI is used for reading and analyzing medical health data, early detection and prediction of recurrence of tumors, automated analysis of blood diseases, among other medical illnesses. Examples of this could be Nirmai Health Analytics, which uses AI for detection of cancer, the OncoStem Diagnostic, which uses AI for testing recurrence of cancer, and the recently launched Arogya Setu app, which uses AI for COVID-19 contact tracing, syndromic mapping, and self-assessment. The second use would be prescriptive use, which uses AI not only to detect disease trends, but also suggest possible treatments, and examples of this would be Kensai AI technology, which uses artificial intelligence to predict who in the population is more likely to get sick and how we should treat them, which is the best possible way to move forward. Second example would be Google DeepMind Health AI, which notifies doctors when the patient health is deteriorating and helps in diagnosis by combing through its database for comparable symptoms and diagnosis. The third would be process optimization, wherein AI is used for improving efficiency, hospital bed management, finding and consulting doctors, storing health records, and procuring medicines. Examples of this is Cloud Medex and Cleveland Clinic AI, which uses artificial intelligence for management of patient data, hospital bed management, and clinical history management. Lastly, would be patient-facing applications, which uses artificial intelligence to support and promote patient interactions with healthcare providers. Now, this would include examples such as Visa, which is an AI chatbot, which provides mental health support. Secondly, an example would be Babylon, which streamlines reviewing of patient symptoms and then recommends whether they should have a virtual check-in with a practitioner or a face-to-face appointment with a practitioner. This patient-facing application would also include mHealth or mobile health, which includes wearable devices, applications within its ambit, which is examples of which would be Apple Health, Google Fit, Fitbit, Samsung Health, etc. We can move on to government initiatives for AI. Government of India has launched many initiatives such as the National E-Health Authority or NEHA, Artificial Intelligence Task Force, Policy Group on Artificial Intelligence, National Intellectual Property Rights Policy, Telemedicine Practice Guidelines. Now, this was released on March 25, 2020 by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and Niti Aayog, which allows AI platforms to assist and support registered medical practitioners with patient evaluation, diagnosis, and management. The Cognitive Science Research Initiative by the Department of Technology, Center for Excellence for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. Now, although these initiatives aim at regulating, standardizing, supporting, and assisting the growth of artificial intelligence in the healthcare arena, they have not been implemented yet, and which has considerably slowed down the growth and development of AI technologies that aim to aid the healthcare ecosystem. We move on to artificial intelligence and the privacy of personal health data. The inherent reliance of artificial intelligence on medical health data and the absence of sector-specific laws has raised serious concerns over the protection of privacy and security of medical data. Medical information has been recognized to attract the reasonable expectation of privacy. This has been held in the case of I versus Finland by the European Court of Human Rights and the 2017 judgment of Justice K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India. Now, the current regime for privacy regulation in India includes the Information Technology Act, read with the Information Technology Rules, and special regulations like the Mental Health Act, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, which provide a broad framework. The National Digital Health Mission, which was launched in 2020, although sets out minimum standards for protection of personal health data, has certain lacunae that should have been addressed before it was notified. Firstly, that the creation of a standalone policy should have been preceded by a strong data protection legislation to ensure adequate legal safeguards are in place. Secondly, the policy has not been able to sufficiently clarify how sensitive data collected shall be protected from breaches. And thirdly, the policy has diluted the right to be forgotten by providing only certain circumstances for erasure of data. Then we move on to the Draft Digital Information Security in Healthcare Act, or DISHA, and the Personal Data Protection Bill of 2019. Now, both these bills were enacted to ensure protection of privacy and confidentiality and standardization of data. However, there are certain lacunae that have to be cured before these are enacted. In a case of DISHA, there is a classification of breach of digital health data into general and serious breach classification, which has no purpose because any classification of breach of data is a serious, any breach of data is a serious breach. And in case of PDP, the bill gives the central government the power to exempt any government agency from the application of this act, which dilutes the right of privacy. And both these legislations do not provide any time frame for how long this data can be stored by clinical establishments and entities. We move on to conclusion. So while the right to health and medical welfare has been established as a fundamental right within the ambit of Article 21, the right to privacy is also a non-optional and non-negotiable fundamental right thereunder. The application of AI in the healthcare sector faces many challenges and obstacles that need to be satisfactorily resolved before it can become the backbone of the healthcare sector. First being the absence of sector-specific legislations need to be addressed at the earliest. Second is extant blind spots in the current data collection process, as right now AI technologies are heavily dependent on data collected from private hospitals and clinical trials. Third would be the high cost of developing AI technologies. And lastly, it is the question of accountability, which is who will be accountable in cases of errors or misdiagnosis by AI? Would it be the doctor or the developer? Moving forward, the following steps must be undertaken. Firstly, we need to re-examine and resolve the loopholes in the policies and guidelines and draft legislations. Secondly, we need to take guidance from international practices and jurisprudence, like we need to ensure that there is a right to be forgotten. And secondly, there should be regular privacy impact assessments by a statutory established entity. And lastly, the implementation of government initiatives to promote artificial intelligence in the healthcare arena and the legislative framework must be carried out at the earliest.
I would like the chairs to please ask questions now.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kanna. I know this is a very good presentation, and you have touched upon the linkages between the healthcare and the legal aspects related to AI. I would like to ask you that, the NITI Aayog has come out with two documents. One is the strategy document. The other one is about the, a proposal to create a oversight.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
sir, can you please repeat?
I'll repeat it. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I was telling that, the NITI Aayog has come out with a national strategy, and recently they have come out with one document, suggesting an advisory body, oversight body for regulating the AI-related aspects. So how do you view those steps in relation to healthcare?
I had talked about the government initiatives, and those steps are very important in developing AI right now, because at the moment we really don't have any specific laws that govern it. Right now, the only thing that's governing the artificial intelligence and your privacy and your consent and everything is only the Information Technology Act. And if you go into the healthcare arena, then you have special legislations like the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, the Mental Health Act. So the NITI Aayog giving guidelines would set a framework in place so that entities like your AI chatbot Vyasa and other entities which are providing AI technologies, they can have guidelines as to what they should do. For example, right now, nobody removes your data. Once you've entered your data into any of these AI technologies, you don't have the right to ask for your data to be no longer shared by that AI technology. So if you want the right to be forgotten, there has to be some framework that's in place, whether it's given by NITI Aayog at the moment or is given by legislation which will be coming in the future, but there needs to be something that gives you these rights. And it ensures that your data, you can choose when to stop sharing your data.
Thank you. Yes, actually, it is not only the privacy issues, data protection issues, there are liability issues there. When you handle the data, and when you proceed with that and prescribe medicine, and that goes wrong, or if the correct medicine or the correct diagnosis is not done, because when you apply AI, the human brain, the emotional aspects are not there, so it becomes mechanized, or it becomes algorithmic. Then in that case, so who will bear the responsibility or the liability? I think, if you could yeah.
That's exactly the question that I had, that who has the responsibility in cases of a misdiagnosis or an error by an AI technology? Will it be the doctor who is using the technology because he also then has to apply his mind, or will it be the developer? That is a question that has not been answered anywhere across the world. There was a 2017 survey that was done, which was regarding diagnosis of cancer treatment by study, although showed that the AI technology had a better chance of detecting cancer than the practitioners. But there's always a chance of error, and around the world, there is no guidelines which, who will be accountable, whether doctor or whether it will be the developer. So that is something that we really need to do.
Yes. Yeah, I think you may propose some elements on that aspect. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ramya. Great.
Garima ma'am, would you like to ask any question? Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Ramya. Thank you so much. I'm really sure that the inputs that have been given by Sir will further improve your paper. So, all the best. Thank you. Now, Apurva, we can call upon the next participant.
Okay, moving further, our next participant is Dr. Miss Tanisha Sharma and Mr. Pallav Chaudhary, and they're presenting on artificial intelligence in healthcare sector, understanding technicalities and legalities.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Just a second. I'll share this. All right. Is this screen visible to all?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. My name is Tanisha Sharma, third year law student DME, and along with my co-author, we have focused on the topic artificial intelligence and healthcare sector. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. We believe in the power and potential of technology. We have come so far in this trajectory of technological development that we envision a future where AI system is going to incorporate medical healthcare services and different sectors and bring a paradigm shift in traditional old patterns. But what we noticed was lack of planning and AI regulation. So far now, the recent development that we could trace was the discussion paper drafted by Niti Aayog in June 2018 that was titled as National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence. Therefore, we seek forward the permission to present our key arguments that we have presented in our paper. In the first half of this presentation, my co-author, being an engineering student, would try to resolve some technical aspects as to what is AI, can AI supersede our existence, and how does algorithms work, because algorithms play a very important role in the functioning of AI. In the later part of this presentation, I would try to resolve some key arguments regarding the aspect of liability. We have also used a very small standard questionnaire that was circulated by Google Form to enhance and facilitate our research project. Over to you, Pallav.
Thank you, Tanisha. This is Pallav Chaudhary, a student from Galgotia University, BTech third year. So I would like to tell you what AI is. So simply in terms, what AI is just a machine which is able to learn and think just like humans, but it doesn't have the cognitive ability to perform things on its own. What it does is take data which is previously compiled into it and then gives the output. So the term smart and artificial intelligence are used because of that. Artificial is the key term separating human intelligence from what artificial intelligence is. It only just mimics the human cognition. And I don't think so it can ever succeed human intelligence. Please move on to the next slide. How AI works. So first of all, from datasets available on the internet and on the whole wide world, the AI combines a lot of amount of data from these sites, and it is given as an input. It takes the input, processes it on how the algorithms are working, and the process requires multiple amounts of data. Multiple amounts of data are being set into an AI system, and then the given output is given, which is very accurate as to what humans cannot do, but it works on a 100% basis. Please move on to the next page. What are algorithms? Algorithms are the key of artificial intelligence or any computer network would think of. As being an engineering student, I'll tell you what a simple algorithm is. We take a simple input and there are a set of rules. For example, if you want to make a program of, say, you like an ice cream or not. So what the input will be, it will be if you like the ice cream, yes, and if you don't like the ice cream, no. So basically all the programs in the world, as said by Bill Gates, are simple if-else statements. If this doesn't happen, that happens. And on that basis, algorithms are being constructed, and those algorithms are made into AI and machine learning. All these data sets have been way too much progressive. And see, look at the healthcare system a long time ago and now. AI have been very good in helping our medical systems. So algorithms are the base of this, and it requires multiple data sets and those data sets have been trained and forming AI. Please move on to the next. How is AI used in medical fields? There are many uses of AI in medical fields. For example, I'll start with the simple usage of testing and building drugs. So as you can see, during this corona pandemic, many systems were being used and many things were being incorporated. As you might have received something on your WhatsApp called how many corona patients are there, and the app which our government also launched. So that app was also taking data, just taking data and processing the data and making it go through algorithms. We find that there is a use in medical field. It made it accurate. And also the second use is making drugs. Like if you have a strain of something, you can go it and see it. You can take input of that as and then help you make another drug, which can help in the medical treatment. AI has also many use in fields like they can being used in surgery, like for assisting surgery, not in real surgery, but the data that is given will be more accurate. Or if you have to find what a patient has been going through, we will combine a lot of amount of data sets and then see what exactly the patient is having, which is more far accurate than what a doctor will predict. So move on to the next slide. So what are data analytics? Data, as you can see in the diagram, data is collected and processed in the real time and it responds to immediate queries. So what the program does is it takes the data and sees what it has, and it will compare the data to the ongoing database that it has and will predict what is going to happen and will give a faster output. So what happens is it reduces time and it improves the engagement of the patient. You can also see nowadays apps are there. If you go to a certain hospital, the hospitals have apps like you can see simple things in those. You can order things, you can do things, and you can also even assist yourself. Like you have to just write a question and the AI bot will answer your question and you will have that in medical science. So this is the use of AI in medical health and a lot more. Thank you. And the question now is that can it replace us? We also conducted a survey in our paper, Google form, and we involved many professors or children or anybody, teachers, and we asked them a lot of questions. One of the question was that can AI replace us? And thinking about that, the world has this all same notion. Can artificial intelligence succeed us? So yeah, no, I don't think so. Because artificial intelligence doesn't have a thinking on its own. What it does is it just take data from the data set which have been given to us by the programmers or by the data collected, and it only processes it. Like all these movies are showing that robots and they can replace the world and be the reason of human extinction. That is just movie sci-fi. So what artificial intelligence is just a basic machine learning or simple algorithm that can help us and only help us. It will reduce a time and an effort. So I think artificial intelligence in healthcare should be also implemented in India. And now the law part will be explained by my author, Tanisha. Thank you.
Right. So far now we have understood the autonomous liability of AI that doesn't exist. Now, is artificial intelligence equal to the intelligence of human being, the legal aspects and the survey? Let's move on to the first argument. Understanding the notion of intelligence. In order to understand the difference of intelligence between ours and the artificial intelligence, let's understand the criteria of intelligence. There are plethora of definitions that are proposed by psychologists. There are multiple intelligence theory. Considering the Indian model, we narrowed the lens to the concept and notion of intelligence proposed by Indian psychologists, which is also called Buddhi. Buddhi means not just the cognitive, but also social, entrepreneurial, emotional, and even empathic component of intelligence. Over here, I would conclude the fact that human intelligence is far more beyond what we are implementing in AI algorithms. We are still ahead in the race of intelligence. Moving forward, the question of legalities. Should AI be granted personhood? This question baffled us. I would move forward to the argument where we try to resolve this entire question. The term person has a historic evolution. And when we look on from the perspective of law, I would say the person is derived from the Latin term persona, which means those who are recognized by law as being capable of having legal rights and bound by legal duties. It means both a human being, a body of person, or a corporation or legal entity that is recognized by law as a subject of rights and duties. Now, the word humans. Yeah, the word human over here was used. There's also word human which is being used. I would say the difference between human and human intelligence is well explained by the theory of Descartes. The theory of Descartes says that beyond the cognitive capacity, the traits of emotions and the traits of morality is what sums up human. We have to draw a line between human and artificial intelligence. If we grant them a legal personhood in the coming future, how will we able to establish our superiority over them? The next question is the question of liability. The question of liability, I have implemented two important principles. Yeah, the two important principles were principles of tort, that is voluntary non-fit injuria, and strict liability. Voluntary non-fit injuria, as all the legal students know, the principle of tort says voluntarily consenting for damage. Let's take a situation. An AI researcher knows the idea and the risk of an AI program algorithm, the threat that the algorithm can cause to the people in the society. And yet he designs that algorithm, and that algorithm turns out to be a threat to us and every other member in the society. Should that AI researcher claim compensatory damages in the court of law? Well, I don't think so, because having the awareness and knowledge, he still did. It also has a second aspect. What happens if an innocent AI is being used or being corrupted by a virus, a hacker, or any other external substance in that case, and the innocent AI is being misused to commit an act of wrong? What will be the entire procedure in this case? The entire procedure would be applied in the sense of strict liability. When a person knows that he is handling, ma'am, just 1 second. When a person knows that he is handling something hazardous, it is the responsibility of the person to make sure that he keeps that particular thing in a more strict environment of surveillance. The conclusion, the entire paper concluded that we want the AI researchers, we presented that the AI researchers must come in hands with the forces of law and present a separate branch of law for AI regulation. There should be a civil regulatory guidelines for AI supervision for the developers of manufacturer. And in case the AI develops a moral consciousness, there must be developing field of ethics. The greatest question that we could not solve was, is it possible? Is it possible to develop an artificial consciousness for AI? Thank you.
I request the chairs to please answer a question with the questions.
You ended with a wonderful question. Can we have an artificial conscience? Interesting. Yeah, because the father of artificial intelligence, for the first time, he asked the question, can machine think? Okay, that was the first question he has proposed. Now you are posing this question. It's very difficult to say now. Maybe we will be able to develop that kind of a system where it will develop its own conscience. Let us wait and see that. Okay, we cannot rule out that possibility. Okay, I just I'm really impressed by both of your presentations, both the authors. Thank you very much. You have good clarity on the topic. I would only suggest you to develop a little more on the legal aspects, particularly the liability aspects. You touched upon the strict liability. You touched upon the non-fit, the no-fault liability also. I would like to ask you whether absolute liability principle will be applicable in this context in any manner, because you have the rider of the inherent or dangerous activity. Okay, so can you place AI activity into the inherently dangerous or hazardous category? That kind of a probe has to happen in your paper. That will strengthen your arguments very well. Okay.
Sure, sir.
You have any initial thoughts you can say, otherwise you can develop it a little later.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to add one more thing, that during the entire research, I personally felt the fact that when we develop an AI, it is like a child, because we are training the child in a human atmosphere. The entire training is being provided by humans. So I think that there is also conditioning of the psychology of an AI. So it's like if we actually condition a child to be aggressive, in the coming future, the child would be aggressive. But if we condition the child with moral obligations and the concept of morality, and make sure that the child has empathy towards the environment, the sensitivity, I'm sure the future would be great. That's it.
Yes, yes. So
I'd say that the condition would be called programming it.
Okay.
In simpler technical terms.
Yeah. Do you like to equate a child with AI?
I don't think so, sir. Humans are good enough.
In that case, I would say that we are the children.
Yes, we are the children. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tanisha. Thank you, Pallav.
Yeah, my co-chair, if she would like to ask any questions.
No, sir. There's no question. I will just say that yes, the paper is. Yeah, Apurva.
Yes, ma'am. Moving further to our next participant, Miss Dhanya Thilakkar Mana. Her title is Application of Artificial Intelligence in the Field of Physiotherapy. Ma'am, you may please proceed.
Miss Dhanya is not here, I believe. Let's call the next participant.
Yes, ma'am. Our next participant is Mr. Vignesh Balaji, and his title is The Challenges of Artificial Intelligence in the Healthcare Sector. So you may please proceed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pushpa Kumar, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Hello?
Okay.
Yes, sir. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. Faculties of DME, student coordinators, and my dear co-participants. So I'm Vignesh Balaji, Assistant Professor at GEMTech School of Law, and my paper is titled So earlier in February this year, the Rajya Sabha was in list of 162 doctors and 107 nurses. Now this statement was further contested by the Indian Medical Association, which put the figure of doctors to 734. Now healthcare professionals suffered a high viral load and the case fatality ratio as a community during the pandemic. So even as what cannot be contested is that the year 2020 had the biggest brunt on the healthcare sector, with frontliners at every rung who struggled to get hold of a PPE set. That's a personal protective equipment, which was their armor against the deadly virus. In fact, the early when the COVID-19 had set up, this was the biggest issue at that time. Now, in a situation where doctors and nurses were in grave danger of contracting the virus, artificial intelligence, which had till then been in the background, gained the spotlight. From the omnipresent Fitbits, the smart watches, now robots were introduced in quite a few hospitals in the country, in Jaipur, Assam, Chennai, to cut off the human to human interaction with infected persons who were in the isolation wards. Now, robots gave comfort for patients with their family members. They helped in diagnosis, carried test samples, and they even raised an alarm when a quarantine breach happened in hospitals because many people were panicking at that time. So, while the potential of artificial intelligence in the healthcare sector is massive, we have explored the bare minimal. This bare minimal, in turn, is also tagged with many critical concerns such as patient safety, privacy, and ethical challenges that remain unaddressed. Now, we had seen some of the issues in the previous presentations, like where is the legal framework? Do we have a legal framework set up? And the real question is when we will draft an artificial intelligence bill of rights, and what will that consist of, and who will get to decide that? That's a very important question. Who will get to decide that? So the legal framework with regards to artificial intelligence has not been in sync with the technological leaps that are happening in the field of India. Concerns such as who will be liable if the robot makes a mistake has not still received attention, because this is a very complex question as to who will take the liability. So we usually do not address it directly because there are many factors behind it, as in who will say what answer to that. So usually the medical professional is accountable for negligence in the practice and faces penal action. The guidelines for AI, however, do not help make that crucial discretion on the basis of malfunctioning on part of the technology or utilization of incorrect data. So should the accountability squarely follow on the particular healthcare professional? Now, there is considerable ambiguity in the process of investigating where the glitch lies and pronouncing a degree of responsibility on part of the medical professional. So there is surgical robots that have been introduced. Now, surgical robots present with serious issue in the law and ethics arena. In case of an undesirable result during a robotic surgery, the physician, hospital, and the manufacturer can be sued. As with any other responsible framework of services, liability is an essential component which need to be spelled out to rule out this ambiguity, as in who will be liable. The other question is lack of testing standards and robot autonomy. So the 2019 budget, it proposed the launch of a national program on artificial intelligence, and we were estimated to add about $957 to the economy by 2035. And artificial intelligence is crucial to innovate and empower the present workforce. So in 2018, the NITI Aayog also released a national strategy for artificial intelligence, which evaluates the importance of artificial intelligence in multiple sectors. So that being said, the scope of artificial intelligence is immense and uses wide ranging. But we have not explored, we have only explored the bare minimal of it. And using AI can be deleterious if the proper regulations are not framed. Therefore, there's an urgent need for a concrete legal definition of AI incorporating its own rights, responsibilities, and obligations. The other question that we see is that, which has been also addressed by many people who came before, that the privacy is also at stake. So AI by default involves exchange of data between patients and healthcare providers, and which results in a large scale repository of information and algorithms. But India still continues to lack sufficient regulation on data privacy. Now, this could result in abuse of information outside the settings of AI in the healthcare sector. Access to data deserves utmost attention, and privacy is a fundamental right, as we know. So, legal confrontations that arise out of the large aggregation of sensitive data and its protection, sharing, privacy, and security should be dealt with more further. Then come the ethical challenges that we face. So, in India, when we do trials mostly on the marginalized. So, trials without consent on the marginalized. This is another a very major ethical issue that we face. Now, we have a dubious distinction of using the poor and sick persons in the country for a clinical drug trials. For example, in 2013, the Supreme Court was informed by the center that around 2,644 persons had died in the clinical trial of 475 new drugs during 2005 to 2012. So about 2,644 people died because of a clinical trial of 475 new drugs during 2005 to 2012, of which only 17 were approved for marketing in India. So you can imagine only 17 were approved, and we had so many people who died. So marginalized communities continue to be used as guinea pigs by multinational pharmaceutical companies for their trials without their sanction or preference, whether it is for a drug or AI-driven technology as well. So this has to be kept in mind, that whom do we do the trials on? And this AI industry must also turn from being exclusive to inclusive. Now, for example, in 2011, IBM's supercomputer, Watson, won the popular US quiz show. It's called Jeopardy, and it became very famous. So the hospitals in USA began the introduction of AI in cancer care. Now, long before that, doctors realized that winning a game show is completely different from diagnosing cancer because both require different kinds of trainings. So training Watson in the medical field was tougher, while artificial intelligence could excel with repetitive, non-complex tasks like routine eye surgeries, analysis of quantitative data and laboratory research, and administrative work. It could not, on the other hand, grasp the finer nuances which the doctors could do. It took healthcare professionals and data experts more than 7 years to train Watson for just 7 types of cancer. On the other hand, doctors in Netherlands and Denmark of the same Watson, they rejected this IBM signature brand, and they complained that the Watson's advice was biased towards American patients and protocols of care because it had been conditioned there. Like in the earlier slide, someone said that condition being programmed. So that was rejected in Netherlands and Denmark. Now, this turn of events clearly emphasized that personalized treatment formats are bound to work better even in AI. So if you have personalized treatments, maybe that will work better. Then the question which of lack of trust, which even Pushpakumar said in an earlier slide about the lack of empathy and trust, this also comes up. In Japan, where over 23% of the population is elderly and vulnerable, there's a massive crunch in domestic labor, which in turn had resulted in unprecedented robotic development. Hello? Okay. So how robots drew lukewarm reception, proving that even the most intelligent robots could not replace a human being and provide compassion. Compassion is a very important term here, basic necessity for any caring system. So filling them in all places can in fact be redundant and destructive. You try to put AI everywhere. So above all, a decisive link between a healthcare provider and the patient is also trust. So will robots be able to attain that? So what is the way forward? So while it has the potential to harbor extraordinary transformation, the social, ethical, and legal applications of AI-enabled technology cannot be overlooked. Artificial intelligence is a tool, but its use is purely human preference. So in remote India, AI at best can be complemented by enabling quick and efficient delivery of services and not a replacement for skilled professionals. That is my view. The use of commercially motivated intentions, which we see here, it can have critical implications if not ethical concerns. Ethics is a very important term here that we have to see. AI technology has to also be inclusive. We cannot exclude people. It has to be inclusive of the needy and the diverse population of India, which right from the process of creation to the point of its delivery. Now, our population is very diverse in terms of language, in terms of territory, in terms of religion, caste,
So please wind up.
economic, and every kind. So we need a very diverse kind of AI, which is very inclusive. This can happen only when there is a conscious choice to include in the process stakeholders from a diverse background who have the lived experience of the
So
most
please wind up.
marginalized. So after all, robotic technology has to be human-centric, customized, and suited to the essential requirements of the people it aims to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Vignesh.
Time up.
Where's the chairs to please ask
Yeah,
questions
thank
now?
you.
Who would like to go first?
No, sir, you can ask the question.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Mr. Vignesh, it's wonderful, presentation. Very nice. Okay, so you have really very lucidly, you have touched upon all the legal issues. I really appreciate it. I think you have done a good job, and I would like to read your full paper. Okay. You are mainly, I'm impressed by your concerns on the emotions and AI. Okay. You touched upon other areas. I know my main concern is about the emotions here. So one is when the AI is in operation, in action. It could be robotics. It could be some other method in which you can operate AI. In that sense, it mainly relies on the data. It mainly relies on the impulse. It is programmed with, and it operates accordingly. Then in that case, one is, when you get used to that, you also develop a kind of an emotion with that, and it also has to react to that. Okay, both emotion happens in both ways. Okay, so I think, if you could look at that both angles. So you're looking at how in healthcare aspect, the patient care and other aspects where the pain and the emotion of the patients and the people who get benefited, that's a major concern. There are some work going on, particularly relating to emotions. Maybe you may like to look at the work of Kate Darling. You can look at that. Kate Darling is
What's the spelling?
Kate, Kate Darling. Okay, she's associated with the Harvard Berkman Center, Berkman Klein Center, and also MIT Media Lab. But now she has come out of the Media Lab. So her idea is when robots are being used by us. When you do something to robot, what kind of emotional imbalance or the problems that they have, and that's another way of looking at it. And she also looks at if how the robot will react where, with the different emotional situations. So that kind of literature you can find from her studies. She's quite active in that area. Maybe you may like to look at it. Maybe she may also connect you with the different other experts. Okay, so this will help and strengthen your paper. So I'd like to read your paper at the end. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Garima ma'am, would you like to answer
Thank
the
you.
question?
No, there's no question. But yeah, I would like to thanks Vignesh. He has taken up a very interesting sub point, that is medical trials, and I really appreciate the fact that yes, this is a topic which is generally neglected when it comes to healthcare and artificial intelligence. So yes, you have done a great job, and all the best. Thank you, Vignesh. Yeah,
Thank you.
Apurva.
So how many presenters we have now?
I think we are left with two more presentations. Mr. Ajay Raj Singh, along with Dr. Kuldeep, is the next presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Are the presenters here?
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Ma'am, moving further to the next participant, Mr. Ajay Singh, Raj Singh, and Dr. Kuldeep. And their title is Legal Study on Scientific Justification under Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures and Competence in India.
It is again humbly requested to the presenters to please stick to the timeline. Thank you.
I believe Mr. Kuldeep and Mr. Ajay are not here. Let's proceed to the next participant.
Okay, moving further, our next participant is Ajaz Afzal Loon and Ashfaq Hamid Dar. And their title is Advancement of Artificial Intelligence and Legal Insuation in Healthcare Services, Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
They are also not here. We are calling Dr. Nishtha next.
Okay, ma'am. Dr. Nishtha Kaushiki, ma'am, can you please proceed?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Nishtha Kaushiki, and I'm working as an assistant professor in Central University of Punjab, which is located in Bhatinda. The title of my presentation is very different from what I've been hearing, in this session. My title is Chinese Unrestricted Warfare and Artificial Intelligence, exploring the possible transformative scenarios for India. And if you permit, I want to share my screen. Yeah. Just a second.
Yes, ma'am, you can share your screen.
Yeah. Okay. I hope my screen is visible to all. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, your screen is visible.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now with regard to India's position in South Asia, we all know that China is an active threat. China is an active threat for us, and China, along with Pakistan, they present before us a very collusive threat that we have to actually go against it. Okay, so with regard to my paper, I want to speak about the advancements of China in artificial intelligence, and I want to explore the scenarios, the threat scenarios that it can pose for us. So within this unrestricted warfare, so basically it is a Chinese terminology, which is nothing else except the hybrid warfare, which can actually damage our lives without going for an actual warfare. So in this unrestricted warfare or hybrid warfare, you don't actually have to fight it out on the border, but rather it's more or less like a psychological warfare, smuggling warfare, technological warfare, cyber warfare, media warfare, etc. So in a way, you have to subdue the enemy without fighting, as Sun Tzu says it. And transformative scenario, on the other hand, they dwell into the understanding of how two nations, between two nations, the future relationship will develop in context of the strategy, the threats, and the military and the non-military threats that are there. And if you talk about the Chinese advancements, it was in way back 1992 that the Chinese Military Commission, or the CMC as we call it, they had approved for wargaming simulation, which incorporates AI systems. So definitely, given that understanding, we have to acknowledge the fact that these guys are much ahead than us, and they had developed artificial intelligence for warfare in early 1990s. So therefore, although we have today US as the leading power for AI, but given China's hegemonic intentions, or its wolf warrior diplomacy, as many people might be knowing, it basically wants to dominate the region as well as the international scene, and it wants to restrict India to South Asia. So the paper is basically about exploring its hegemonic tendencies and how it can actually uh, pose a threat to us. And if you talk about at a domestic level how China is using its artificial intelligence, it actually came up with its intelligence law in 2017, which actually made it legal for the state agencies, like its intelligence agencies, etc., to monitor the foreign nationals, companies, and organizations which are working on its soil. So therefore, if any of the Indian company, or if Indians are working there, so they can at any point of time, according to their domestic law, they can seize the laptops and other technical gadgets, and they can also in fact tap phone tapping can also be done to just to see that whether they are working against the Chinese interest, or it's just the usual stuff that is going on. And in fact, Article 7 of the same law, it actually authorizes it, not authorizes, sorry, it directs the state to cooperate, like it directs its individuals and companies to cooperate with the state agency. So therefore, you can have a dual role of Chinese companies such as Huawei, which have its presence throughout the world. So therefore, if you talk about inviting Chinese companies and doing business over here, they are protected by their law. So definitely it's like, your domestic laws and their domestic laws are very different. So if you catch a Chinese, with regard to espionage or spying, and playing a dual role, so he is well protected by his law. And China is there to ensure, the state agencies are there to ensure that he gets out of it.
Dr.
Yes.
Minister, sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you please put the PPT in full screen mode?
Okay,
And please can you switch on your camera?
Okay, just a second. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Ma'am, please switch on the camera. The recording is also taking place.
Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So through its intelligence law, it has, it has used this law as a double-edged sword. So therefore, Article 7 is there, which I have spoken about, and it has actually also developed advanced surveillance technologies that, uses artificial intelligence to recognize people. So whether they belong to the Han Chinese group, that is the majority group, or whether do they belong to, Uyghur Muslims group, that is just on the sidelines of the Chinese society, and also on the border areas, which are actually fighting for their freedom, and they have those separatist tendencies. So therefore, in the streets across China, you will find cameras which are using the artificial intelligence technologies to actually monitor that whether their facial features recognize them as Han Chinese or Uyghur Muslims. And if any crime takes place, the first suspicion that goes that it goes towards the direction of Uyghur Muslims. So they are being caught, and they are being traumatized. So that is how it is using it. And if you talk about how China is a threat at a regional level, basically, it has intentions to actually alter the the security structure that is there, and also the balance in its favor. So therefore, if you have a conventional war, which we were thinking of after Galwan, it can actually use its artificial intelligence weapons, and it can actually strategically upset the global balance of power, and especially the military balance of power. And also the debates between combatants and non-combatants would be blurred. We have in international law, we have that difference between combatants and non-combatants, and therefore China actually poses a threat for us. And if you talk about the threat at a conventional level, I have divided my paper into two parts: threats at a conventional level and threats at a sub-conventional level. Conventional level is basically the traditional threat which is there posed on the border. So therefore, you can have those swarm assaults, you can have the swarms coming in. And in fact, if you just talk about artificial intelligence, it is so much inspired from nature that US is developing small spies, espionage systems wherein robots, artificial intelligence robots are looking like fishes, birds. They are inspired from nature. In fact, if you have seen that movie on Balakot strikes on Uri and all, you would see that a boy is developing a robot, artificial intelligence robot, which looks like a bird. So US is already going ahead with it, and therefore they can be used, okay, for the espionage, and they can also be used to destroy the enemy missile launcher. For example, those satellites and all, satellites and all, they all use artificial intelligence. So suppose, like, if India wants to fire its missiles and we are not able to do it, if you disable that system, that itself is a threat. And then they also have something called as the military civil military integration or military civil fusion, which leads to an intelligence-ized warfare. Yeah. And then the issue of just let me complete 2-3 minutes more. Yeah. And then you also have the issue of threat and replication of AI technology. Now, AI technology, if you see our defense trade, most of it we are getting from Israel, we are getting from US. Now, suppose if China employs its artificial intelligence technologies to steal the designs, to steal, the basic information and the critical information about these weapons. So what will you do in case of a conventional war? So in a case of conventional war, basically they can be disabled. So of course, there will be a loss of tactical edge. So therefore, those issues of threat and replication are there. Then possibility of non-hackable AI guided weapons. Now, suppose if you want to hack their weapons or their missile systems, you would not be able to do it. Those developments are also there. Then you have forged evidences which are being used, and this also comes at a sub-conventional level. This threat also is there at a sub-conventional level. Use of forged evidences basically mean that they have these softwares which can copy the voices that they can show you that your leader, probably a popular leader, which I would not like to name, is carrying out human rights violation, is using some derogatory terms for a particular community. So therefore all those threats are there which can actually alter the balance of the society. And then role of China in fanning the leftist, Maoist and separatist groups is also there. So therefore you have those false leaked videos, and wherein you have the fusion of artificial intelligence with social media. So therefore, if you talk about CA protest, if you talk about farmers protest, so you have all those social media tags, the hashtags which are operating from across the border. It's from Pakistan, it's from China, in order to reshape the internal security dynamics. So in fact, a system has been developed by the University of Nuremberg and Stanford University, wherein they can produce exact, ma'am, just, this is the last slide, ma'am. This is the last slide, just 1 minute. So they can actually, control facial expressions. They can control the voice, and the voice modulation is also there. And it's very difficult for, people to differentiate whether is it a true voice or is it a false voice? And they can produce voices of former President Obama, Trump, and others. So therefore, propaganda warfare can be easily carried out. And with regard to the recommendations, like for the government, there should be a separate budget for artificial intelligence R&D. Then there has to be the dual use AI capabilities should be strictly monitored. Like if you, if you're talking about, even in the case of health sector, if you have certain tie-ups with Chinese companies, with American companies, with Russian companies, so therefore they have to be monitored by the security agencies. Okay, and there has to be strong linkages with regard to national security. Like we should be, this is my view, maybe I'm wrong, like we should be having laws in which our private companies are also working in tandem with the intelligence agencies such as RAW, IB, etc. And they should also be having commercial interests. So therefore, security agenda should be, included in this. And then they should also be simulated wargaming, etc. So this is all about my presentation. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Now I request the chairs to please ask questions, ma'am and sir.
Yeah. So please.
Thank you, Nishta. It's a very different perspective, security-related perspective.
Thank you, sir. It was supposed to be, in another track, but then I have a
Yes.
conference
No,
tomorrow.
that's okay.
Thank
No
you so
problem.
much.
But it's a good presentation, and it is a good perspective also you brought, and in a very thorough, comprehensive analysis you have done. I really appreciate that point. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Only thing I would like to ask is that you have highlighted several capabilities of the Chinese technological might. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know where do we stand in this context? That's number one. In India, I would like to know.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, when such threats are not only coming from China, coming from different other countries, then in that case, what kind of a defensive mechanisms that you would propose, or we already have, if you could throw light
Yes,
on
sir.
that.
Sir, first I would like to answer your second question, the defensive mechanisms that India has or India has initiated. This is related to your first question, like what provisions does India have? So, sir, India has actually just made a committee for, artificial intelligence and it was just done probably last year only. And Prime Minister Modi has already started working for it. Now, with regard to the defense mechanisms, so there is a particular, like especially with regard to social media, where there is internal security is at risk. We basically have a term called as perception management. Perception management is basically like the government addresses the people directly. So therefore, post Balakot, after Balakot, what you basically saw was that Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Defense personnel, they were addressing the media jointly. Now, this, although perception management is a term which is coined by the US Army, it has been actively used by the US. But in India, this is a new feature wherein you try to reshape the opinion, the perception of the people, and you tell them like all these videos and all these audios that you have been listening, they are false and they have actually not been done. For example, you might see, you might have come across videos like, in which Indian soldiers or paramilitary forces have been shown as violating the human rights of Kashmiri people.
Yes, yes, yes.
And therefore, the government addresses through its state media channels and through its other associated channels that this is a false video.
This is about the social media management.
Yes, this is about social media management, but it has
I'm
only started recently.
I'm asking you about the defense mechanisms military-wise.
Military-wise, if you see that India is working on technologies in cooperation with the United States, that we should be able to disable the missile system of Pakistan as well as China. We are trying for it. We have not achieved it, but hence, I say that this is my view, and this is in fact even a fact check if you do. That we have not developed enough in terms of artificial intelligence. So therefore, okay, artificial intelligence development will take time, but then, we should be having strategies to counter it. And second thing is, not much is available in public domain. We do not have reports from Ministry of Defense and External Affairs, which are declassified and which tell us about what they have achieved so far. So therefore, in that domain, there is less knowledge.
Less knowledge. Okay. Maybe, you may have to look at something related to, identifying such surveillance mechanisms or, the AI related, instruments. For example, you said that, like birds or something like that, the AI, surveillance can happen, or they may also, target it for attack. Okay, in that case, you may have some kind of a sensor system.
Yes, sir.
To
In fact,
identify before it attacks, you jam it.
if you see, yes, sir. In fact, if you see, US soldiers, the way they, I mean, a camera is mounted on their gun, wherein it has been used by China in Hong Kong protest, wherein, on the gun, they have a robot, they have basically small cameras which are fixed, and it recognizes people as to who are there, even if they are, even if they have camouflage and they are using false, I mean, they have changed their looks. And also, second thing is they record also who's doing what. For example, if you see the CA protest when Amit Sharma was the name of the person, our intelligence bureau person who was killed on the Delhi roads, there was nothing that was captured. So therefore, I strongly recommend that, if you have to talk in terms of giving guns to the Delhi police, they should be mounted on, they should be mounted with a camera which recognizes people who are acting against them, even if they have used different measures to hide their identity, and it also records what the police is doing and what these people are doing, because usually what police does becomes a huge thing, that they are violating the human rights, and you have all those people coming in the debate. I'm sorry, I'm talking to legal people, but then we have, if you want to talk about what the police is doing, but then you should also be talking about what these protesters are doing.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Nishta. It's really good. So technologically, we need to develop a lot, and it's a long way to go. Thanks a lot for your presentation.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Before we move ahead, I would just like to recognize Nishtha ma'am's contribution. This is the second conference she is with us, and we are very, very delighted to have her again.
Thank you
so much, ma'am, for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, with the permission of the chair, I would like to make one observation and maybe give a suggestion to Nishtha.
Please go ahead, sir. Yeah.
We have first of all, we're very impressed with the presentation. My name is Dr. Sudhir Bisht.
Yes, sir.
We have it's a standalone point. We have a tendency to call any machine to machine learning. We have a tendency to confuse that with artificial intelligence. So Professor Pushpa Kumar will agree with me that we have to, first of all, segregate machine to machine learning with artificial intelligence. That is number one. Number two, just to add to what Nishtha ma'am said, and she is right, in terms of our defense mechanism, I have been involved with defense studies for some time. In terms of our defense mechanism, the usage of AI is okay, as Professor Kumar asked this question. In terms of offensive mechanism, we are way behind. That's what I wanted to contribute, sir.
Yes, thank you. It's a very good point, sir. Very good. Yes, over to the organizers. I think, are we going to wind up now? Summing up?
Would you like to ask questions, or I should?
Thank you, Nishtha ma'am. Apurva, what is the status?
I think next we are moving to the next participant. We are moving to the next participant.
Okay.
Ms. Ojasvi Bhagat. No, we have one more, ma'am. Dr. J. Padmaja.
Okay.
And Ojasvi Bhagat.
So, sir, with your permission, can we just stick to the important points? Can we shorten the time a little, or is it fine?
We can give only 5 minutes time, not more than that.
Sure, sir.
You can only discuss with us the findings or the core points that they want to discuss.
Right. So, presenters, please abide by the timings. Thank you.
Moving further to the next participant, Ms. Ojasvi Bhagat, and her title is Liability of Artificial Intelligence in Operating Theatre. Ma'am, you may please proceed.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Very much.
Yes, Ojasvi, please switch on your camera.
Yes, ma'am. So given the paucity of time, I will try to abide by the time. First of all, a very good afternoon to everyone present. Yes, ma'am. I think I started the screen sharing. Is it visible?
Please share your PPT.
Yes, it's visible, Ojasvi. Please begin.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So good afternoon to the respected organizers. First of all, thank you so much for hosting this amazing conference. Given the paucity of time, I'll try to abide by the time limit. My topic for the presentation today is liability of artificial intelligence in operating theater. Now, before we further talk about what my presentation will entail, I would just like to point out and ask you people, who will you trust, a robot or an actual human being, a qualified doctor to do your operation? Because I personally went and have seen robotic surgeries, given that my mother is a doctor in the Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute in Delhi itself. The robotic surgeries are much of a reality, and the question when we talk about from the legal fraternity is and should be, who is going to be liable if in case any medical malpractice or medical negligence is done part of the robot, not the doctor. So, first of all, we all know what the concept of medical negligence entails. It means that there was a duty to take care, the normal components of negligence. There was a breach of the duty, and because of the breach of the duty, there was damages that were suffered by the particular plaintiff. Now, this particular thing is very well established. We have the Bolam principle, we have the Bolitho principle when it comes to medical malpractice. But what will happen if in case the thing which has actually done damage to you, the duty that was breached, it was by a machine which is functioning on artificial intelligence. So now, right now, we have machinery which are ruled and governed by the doctors, so it is working under their supervision. But we are progressing towards more and more diagnostic machinery as well as surgical machinery, after which the machine will be fully autonomous and will be performing the surgery on its own. So what if in the Achyut Ram case, it was not the doctor who left the handkerchief, it was actually the machine the machine was maybe infected. Also, if you talk about post-operative care, a patient is very sensitive after a surgery. So a doctor scrubs, a doctor, sanitizes themselves again and again to ensure that no trace of a particular, let's say, germ is there. However,
Sorry for the interruption. Yeah, please bring the PPT in the full screen mode.
okay, I'm so
proceedings are being recorded.
Okay.
So put in the slideshow board.
Okay, I'm so sorry, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yeah, so when it comes to medical negligence, we have very well established principles to attest whether the doctor was negligent or not. We have section 304 of IPC as well. However, when it comes to machinery, we don't know where we stand with regards to ascertaining the liability. So how do we ascertain the liability? To whom do we ascertain the liability? The first suggestion that my paper brings in, that we can ascertain the liability on the software developer. So there are certain licensed professions, such as the legal profession is a licensed profession, medical profession is a licensed profession, teaching profession is a licensed profession. You have to clear the bar exam before you can actually go ahead and practice. The similar thing exists in terms of medical fraternity also. It is a licensed profession. So if we make, let's say, the software developing who are actually engaged in these particular artificial intelligence and licensed profession, then they will also come under the category of specialized professions, and then we can ascertain liability onto them if in case any particular algorithm which was developed by them results in injury to the plaintiff. So that is something that we can look into. One of the suggestions that I would bring forward in my paper. Also, there are certain ethical concerns that I would like to bring into forefront. The ethical concerns primarily being Kantian ethics. So what does Kantian ethics say? That a person should be capable of adjudicating this particular circumstance. He has given categorical imperative like universality, and only a human being which is which has the capacity of self-determination and which can show, let's say, compassion and the morality can only exist in only these type of human beings, and not when it comes to, let's say, a particular robot. Every single day, if you are in the operating theater as a doctor, you are faced with ethical dilemmas. Should we save this person or should we save that person? But how well are we able to rely on the judgment made by an artificial intelligent machine? Because the machine works on algorithms. It does not work on, let's say, the need of a particular individual, or it does not take into consideration the circumstances in which the individual was found. It is an algorithm which will work bereft of morality, and that is a thing that is really cumbersome and making it really difficult for artificial intelligence to be brought full front and wholly and fully into the healthcare sector. Now, some of the other challenges that we face are there are certain solutions to the legal challenges. Since there is a paucity of time, I would like to depict that my paper has suggested like some of the challenges, like the solutions to the challenges of ensuring that the medical in the medicine field, artificial intelligence can be liable. So first is awarding personhood to the artificial intelligence. So let's say when you talk about attributing personhood to the artificial intelligence, then we can just conclude that the machine who is doing the crime will be liable for the crime themselves. If in case the machine was negligent, then you can actually say and take compensation from the machinery, because we have awarded legal personhood to this particular machinery. Second is the concept of vicarious liability. Vicarious liability is a very well established concept in the legal field, in which basically respondent superior, I am governing on my actions are based on your commands, so you would be held liable for my actions. We can even make the hospital who is particularly using these kind of machinery, and we can even make, let's say, the doctor under whose instruction these machineries were operating liable if in case a medical negligence thing happens, or let's say any sort of crime as such is committed by when it comes to these machinery. Also, there is a concept of product liability, liability for enterprises. So product liability is a very new concept. It has been incorporated in the Consumer Protection Act of 2019, which makes the manufacturer of a particular commodity liable when it comes to the damages which are suffered from the plaintiff. So if you incorporate the concept of product liability, which is already functioning in the airline industry, in the aviation sector, if in case there is a landmark case in this also, people were traveling in a plane, there was no safety precautions in the plane because of the manufacturer's fault, and because of which the plane actually crashed and huge damages were received by these persons. So, and this is like a 1970 something judgment. So if we can attribute product liability onto aviation manufacturers, we can actually attribute product liability to the people who are manufacturing these artificial intelligent machinery and robots. So we can bring them under the ambit of consumer protection also.
Conclude.
And then we can take compensation from them. So that is my conclusion itself. With regards to artificial intelligence, we are facing a lot of challenges. We are a little bit behind when it comes to other countries. Fully autonomous machinery will be something that we will be seeing in the near future. We need to prepare ourselves for that reality, and we need to form particular statutes to defend ourselves if in case we suffer any damages because of these particular machinery. Thank you so much.
I request our chairs to please ask questions.
Yeah, so please.
Yes. Ojasvi, very good. Very brief presentation you made, and a really good presentation on liability. Okay. Because of paucity of time, we may not discuss much, but I would like to ask you about one a small point, that you are trying to fix the liability on the machinery itself. How is it possible in the existing legal framework?
Yes, sir. So it is extremely difficult to actually establish that machine was liable. So that is why if we grant legal personhood or if we make the machinery a quasi judicial entity, then we can actually claim, the compensation from the plaintiff. It is one of the recourse that we might take. There are other recourses also, just as vicarious liability, and we have product liability, but we can actually make the machine liable for its own actions. If in case we are saying that the machine is fully autonomous, if we are saying that the machine is capable of having the mens rea as such, then we can give the machinery a legal personhood, and whatever the machinery will be earning from the operation that the machine is doing, we can claim the certain amount of
this is a very difficult proposition. Maybe you may have to look further into the details. Okay, because a machine, an artificial machine, or the systems cannot be given a legal personality as such, because it doesn't have the intellectual capability to think about, decide about the choices. So that's one thing. Okay, so otherwise all your points about the vicarious liability and other issues are really good. You have connected all the issues. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Garima ma'am, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you, Ojasvi. We can move to the next presenter.
And by this, we come to the end of this technical session 1. I, on behalf of the National Law Conference, team of DME, and entire fraternity of the college, extend a very warm vote of thanks to Sir Pushpakumar sir and Dr. Goswami ma'am, who spared time from their busy schedule for chairing this session And further, I also thank all the presenters for gracing your crucial work and sharing with us your opinions and views. Thank you very much for your presence, everyone.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be part of it. Okay.
Thank you, sir, so much for coming for our session. Such an honor to host such a learned person like you.
My honor. It's my privilege really to be part of it. I learned a lot from this session. Okay. I would only say last point that if you are coming out with any edited book or proceedings, kindly share it with me. I'll be very happy to do.
We'll send it to you, sir.
All the best to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.